My name is Martin Holloway. I'm 62, recently retired, or so they think. I spent 38 years in risk management, studying people for a living, knowing how to read a man's face before he knows what he's thinking. After my wife passed from ovarian cancer, I realized I had two anchors left, my modest house in Surrey and my only son, Adam. But something about Adam had changed since his 30s. He used to call me every Sunday. Now I get a message every third weekend, usually about money. And when I gave, it was silence again. I started to wonder, if I lost everything, who would still show up for me? Before we go deeper, take a second to like, comment, and subscribe if you're into real stories about betrayal and calculated comebacks. Huge shout out to Roger from Leeds, who's been tuning in from day one. If you want a shout out in the next story, drop your name and city in the comments. Loyalty doesn't go unnoticed here. So I made a decision. I told Adam I'd been made redundant. Cost cutting, I said. They let go of all the older staff. I said it with the right amount of hesitation, the kind that makes people lean in. He didn't ask many questions, just sighed, told me things were tough on his end too. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched in silence. No offer to visit. No gesture of help. Not even a dinner invite. Just a forwarded job ad for a security guard role at Tesco. I tested the waters further. Asked if I could stay in his guest room for a bit while I got back on my feet. His reply was cold, bureaucratic. Wouldn't be a good time, Dad. We got Amy's parents coming to stay. My own son, closing the door. That night, sitting in my quiet living room, I poured a finger of whiskey, looked out at the garden my wife had loved, and made a quiet vow. You failed the test, son. And now, I will return the favor. Legally, precisely, and without a shred of anger. The days after that call were quieter than usual. Not just outside, inside too. Something hardened in me. Not in a bitter way. More like steel, cooling into shape. I kept up the act. Called Adam once more. Mentioned my job hunt, sprinkled in a few believable rejections. He sounded bored, said something about staying positive while checking out of the conversation halfway through. Amy didn't even come to the phone. I didn't ask again. I wouldn't need to. My late wife, Ellie, used to say, family isn't who you're born to. It's who shows up when things go dark. That line never meant much to me when she was alive. But now, with Adam more interested in his golf weekends and tech stocks than his father's well-being, it rang loud. The only one who came by during that tough time was Joan, our next-door neighbor. She brought over stew and rhubarb pie. She lost her husband 2 winters ago and still checks my bins on Thursdays. That's family. And that's when I knew this wouldn't be about getting even. This would be about showing Adam exactly what he chose to give up. Slowly, smartly, publicly. I started to map things out the way I used to at work, scenarios, contingencies, outcomes. Not out of vengeance, but out of discipline. My reputation, my name, my legacy, those would be my tools. Adam may have shut the door, but he forgot something crucial. I still held the keys to his financial safety net. And I taught him how to play this game. He just didn't realize I never stopped playing. First, I revisited the trust fund. Ellie and I set it up for Adam when he turned 25. It was meant to kick in fully by 35, just enough to buy a home, start a business, build a life. He never touched it for anything noble. Used it instead to flip cars and impress women. I managed the legal back end and still had discretionary control over half. The paperwork had just been collecting dust. Until now, I contacted our solicitor in Guilford, quietly initiating a hold review. Not a freeze, mind you, just a precautionary review triggered by signs of irresponsible use. Completely legal. I also requested updated valuations on the house Adam assumed he'd inherit someday. Next, I rang an old colleague from the firm, Rob. Sharp guy, now running his own boutique consultancy. I let him in on the act, told him I was never fired, just testing waters. He laughed, then offered me a part-time advisory role, remote. Paid well, discreet. Now came the part one enjoyed most, planting seeds. I mailed Adam a letter. Real envelope. My handwriting. Said I'd made peace with things, that I understood everyone's busy and would likely be selling the house soon and moving somewhere quiet, possibly Spain. I slipped in a vague reference to reviewing some old financial documents and realizing how unbalanced things had become. 2 days later, he called. His tone had changed. Sweeter. Concerned. Are you okay, Dad? You sure you're not rushing things? Maybe we should come by, see the place one last time. I told him I'd think about it. Then I hung up, smiled quietly, and made a fresh pot of tea. He was starting to sweat, and we were only halfway there. Adam and Amy came over the next weekend. First time in nearly a year. He brought wine. She brought fake smiles. I played along, served them lasagna from Joan's recipe, poured the wine like a gracious host. So, you're really thinking about moving? Adam asked, swirling his glass like he suddenly cared. Thinking about it, I said. Spain's quieter. Cheaper too. No one asks much of you there. Amy chimed in. But you'd be all alone, wouldn't you? I smiled. Funny, I thought I already was. I let the silence hang there just long enough. After dinner, I showed them the folder. Printed documents, trust fund statements, property valuations, revised wills. The new will had Joan listed for the house. Not because I owed her anything, but because she earned it with kindness. Adam was still in there, for a single, modest disbursement. You changed this? He asked, scanning the pages like he'd seen a ghost. Just protecting what little legacy I have, I said. You never asked how I was surviving, Adam. Not once. But now that you think it's slipping away, here you are. He started to protest. Amy tried to sound legal. I stopped them both. I wasn't fired. I was testing the current. And son, you swam the other way. I leaned back, letting the weight of the moment settle in. Legacy isn't about money. It's about who you are when someone has nothing to give you. Adam left angry. Amy trailed behind, offering a quiet sorry that meant nothing. They didn't know yet. The letter from the solicitor would arrive Monday. The trust fund will be tied up in a 5-year charitable conversion process. Perfectly legal. Ironclad. And the house? Sale already underway. Joan would get her piece. As for Adam, he'd have time to reflect. It's been 6 months since I shut the door behind Adam that night. He hasn't called since, but I've received 3 emails, all formal, all from his solicitor. I replied once. All actions taken are within legal bounds. I wish you clarity. The house is no longer mine. Joan moved in last week. She cried when I handed her the keys. Said she hadn't felt safe since her husband died. Now she bakes twice a week and waves from the window when I pass by on my walks. I've rented a small flat near the coast in Devon. 2 rooms, sea view, and peace that doesn't cost more than it gives. I work part-time for Rob's consultancy, just enough to keep sharp. The rest of my days are filled with books, chess at the cafe, and morning walks where no one knows me as Adam's father. I left Adam with enough. Not too much. Just what he'd earned. No more, no less. Sometimes justice is as simple as holding up a mirror. He looked away from it, and that was answer enough. Ellie used to say, we don't get to pick our blood, but we do get to pick our boundary. I finally understand what she meant. I didn't seek revenge. I sought truth. And once I found it, I simply stepped away, quietly, with the same dignity I once hoped he'd inherit. He didn't lose a father. He revealed himself unworthy of one. And me? I didn't lose a son. I gained freedom. If this story stirred something in you, do me a favor. Like, comment, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Your support means the world. No shout-outs this time. Just my heartfelt thanks for walking through this with me.